Assalamu alaikum and very good morning to all of you. Thank you, Giffin Lee, one of my assistants in my office. I think there are two strong legacy planning players in Malaysia, As-Solihin and Rockwells. When we stumbled upon two lawyers, one from As-Solihin and one from Rockwells, what else we do? We thought wealth management is one area that we want to look out. The other one, as my managing partner was saying, that we learn about legacy planning, wealth management and all that. But Malaysians by nature, we are in this Malaysia boleh or tidak apa, attitude, and we postpone. And Dato' Azmi, our senior partner, who is very passionate about people, he said, Tuan Haji, I think we have to do something. And what is the best place is, of course, we found a partner with Labuan IBFC, and this is the function that we're having now. I just want to give you a bit of a background as to why we're here. Initially, we said, I think the best will be about 30 people. Then we say, what about 60? Now we end up almost like a big, more than 100 people. In spite of the traffic, I had to travel by KTM train, after almost 7 years. But it's fun. It's nice to be here. We are not here to educate you. That's not our session here. But to share some of the knowledge and to bring awareness. I know how many millionaires are sitting here, Million is not easy these days. If you have a house in Bangsa, it's already a million. If you have a corner house in Subanjaya, where I live, it's more than a million. So I think most of us are millionaires here, sitting here. But what we need is, ladies and gentlemen, is Giffen Lee was talking about her training, is planning for us and for our family. And I know from the list we have lawyers here, we have financial planners, we have trustees. What is our takeaway for today will be that you should be able to at least convince at least one person sitting next to you or who is going to see you do legacy planning. You don't need to come to Azmi Associates for that, but at least if that is done, then the effort that you put in for this session, I think, is worth it. I just want you to take out this sheet, which is in the blue bag, the Azmi Associates bag, okay? So that I can make some reference to that later. Okay, we are looking at, yeah. You see, some of this may be a bit basic for some of you, but it's always a basic that sometimes we lose out. We think it is so easy or so common, we overlook that. All right? Okay, when you ask the new generation to do, you guys, is what it happens with all that. Okay. What is actually legacy planning? Yeah. Legacy planning, is, ladies and gentlemen, is basically preparing yourself, preparing or writing something that can be acted upon when the time comes. Next. And when do you have to do that? This is important, I'm already 66 now. My legacy plan is not that complete. I think after I've done this, I was discussing with my daughter and my son. He said, "Pa, what have you done?" As a Muslim, there's not much can be done, but there are something can be done. So it's a question that you'd ask yourself, when do you want to do it? The answer is now. It's no doubt about it. So the legacy plan, ladies and gentlemen, is to protect and provide to your loved ones when you passed on. I was asking Giffin, why you sort passed on? Why not when you pass away? They say, no, you are passing on. You're not going away. YTL is still living. Said Kici masih ada, walaupun ada sengketan. So you're passing on. I think well done, Giffin, for that, for good word. So it's also here is that there's a requirement to preserve your wealth. My elder brother passed away, He had 2 daughters and 1 son. The son, unfortunately, didn't do well. When there's a distribution, all he did was, I think the money was transferred to his wife, and they went to Dubai and all that, Went for Umrah, spent away the money in front of our eyes. Saya. Because my brother never believed in legacy planning. And the last one is disposition of assets and wealth to whom you name as beneficiary, which you built so that can be acted upon after your death. Okay, these slides are not in your this. I want you to listen, because sometimes people tabacha. Those of you who need one, please email to us. We will give you an abridged version. All right? Okay, these are some of the instruments, ladies and gentlemen, that can be done for legacy planning. Dr. Aziz is now an advisor to Azmi Associates on wealth management. Why we bring him here? It's not that we don't have sufficient lawyers. We have almost 68 lawyers in Azmi Associates. We are ranked about 7th or 8th in terms of size and in terms of skill block in Malaysia. But we need people who are passionate about wealth management. And we can't find any other person but Dr. Abdul Aziz Hassan. So what are the instruments we are talking about? I think I don't want to send code to Newcastle, but just to share. The instruments will come in various forms, and these are the key ones. Trust deed, both for Malaysians and both for Muslims and non-Muslims. It can be done by way of power of attorney. Deed of family arrangement. I think there is one area that will be the focus of Dr. Aziz's presentation, especially for families with special features. A lot of money, a lot of children, daughters, grandson, you name it. I'll give you a few examples towards the end of my discussion. Insurance, as we normally do. Wills. Bank Rakyat makes a lot of money on wills, because anybody who wants to go and take a personal loan, is mandatory for you to make a will, and they earn 300 ringgit. So people like us Solahin Rockville, they are losing out, because they make it a condition to make a will. At least it's a minimum that can do. Because these are, when I don't want to frighten you, you must have seen that, some articles, that we have seen, the tragedies that we see when a patriarch dies. You see, apabila waris tidak menyelesaikan pusaka si mati. Amanah Raya has been in the forefront of getting people to come and do legacy planning. And later you will find that people who invest in Amanah Saham National, if you pass by Jalan Tun Razak, opposite the PNB building, you will see massive advertisements about hibah arrangements for those who have Amanah Saham. I must congratulate PNB for doing that, because I was told that 5% of the ASB investors have more than 1 million. You will see here, orang Muslims, to them is not a priority item, because they say the Fraid can look after itself. Fraid is the will of God. It's something that's written in the Quran. Why do you have to change that? We will come to that afterwards. It can be changed. These are things that we appear in paper. Please don't blame me, say, because once I did some presentation and somebody came up and said, Tuan Haji, why you have to, bring disrepute to certain good family? No, we say we are not doing that. We are doing it because it is in the public domain. And what we are bringing out is a fact. So what is next now? That's what we are looking at. So with all this, as I said, that it goes without saying how important it is to do legacy planning. I know you have been, some of you here has been going around talking about legacy planning. So, I'm not trying to sell that to you, but just to re-emphasize, I think you have to go on and on and on, as we have done in Azmi Associates. We have allocated some resources more on the basis of Amal Jariyah, to come up with this point. We also intend to have a much larger session towards the end of the year with Labuan IBFC, inshallah. The intention, as I said, number one is always in our heart. We want to protect our beneficiaries while doing the legacy planning. And the other one that gives is that we have a choice as to how we want to distribute. You will leave it to the Distribution Act applicable to non-Muslims. The distribution is settled, what the wife gets, what the parents get. Previously, parents were excluded from the Wills Act, but now I think when the government decided that the parents should be catered for when there is no will. So if you do not have a will for non-Muslims, the parents get a share from that. So it's automatic. But you can deviate from that, knowing the needs of the children. We'll come back to that. We did a bit of study. We found that in major families, there will always be a certain child who requires more help than the other. Either that chap is disabled or has a mental history, or God's way of distribution of wealth as well as distribution of health. He takes some and gives some. The other point is that, which is important, is you want to rest in peace, they call it, without family disputes. I come from Penang, we have a lot of these Chinese tauques there. You'll be surprised. Most of them will have wills made by English solicitors. I was managing the will of Yap Cho Yi, the founder of Ban Hilly Bank. His will ran to 5 or 6 generations, including the Wawasan Open University, in Penang. That was the house of Yap Cho Yi, which he donated under the will for education. I think he will rest in peace. Penang also carries a road on his name. But he avoided disputes. Of course, the Ban Hilly Bank, the name is no more now. It is part of CMB now. The beauty of legacy planning is, of course, you save cost. I have a bit of a litigation background. We love disputes. And dispute files carry money. People don't mind paying, because they want to teach the other fellow a lesson. They want to get the best lawyers in town for that. In the end, they become poorer, and the lawyer gets better Mercedes and BMWs. Sayang. You want to avoid that. Even though I'm a lawyer, I don't enjoy that. The process is speedier if you have a plan. Syed Kichi, the man died almost 10 years ago. It was only settled last June. The other point is, of course, apportionment is key. You decide what you want to do. Of course, there is one legislation which says that if a will makes no allocation to a disabled child or a spouse, the High Court can, notwithstanding the will, make some allocation. We followed, when I was in public trustee, I think we pushed for that legislation because we found that certain persons towards the end of their life, they restructure the distribution because they were not looked after during the last few years of their life. So the government accepted public trustee proposal and came up with the legislation, and that legislation is still in the books. Not many people know, but it's only for maintenance purposes. All right. But notwithstanding that, as I said, the law, both for Muslims and non-Muslims, during your lifetime, allows you to apportion the way that you want to do. The other one that we are looking at is doing this is a business succession. I think you will be advising. Our consultants are now running 2 files, which I want to share with you afterwards, where the business succession is key, especially for companies or with families, in large families, or with massive assets. NASA Motors is one example. When Tan Sri died, luckily his wife is a very strong woman. She was able to pull through. Otherwise, they would have been destroyed, because the children were all in the early 20s. So you need a business succession plan, and I think Dr. Aziz is going to talk about much more. I don't want to get the thunder from him. The other important thing I think we will always emphasize to our clients is that you decide who will be your representative after you're gone, after you pass on, as we say. It's not the court that's going to decide, because normally the beneficiaries, kadang-kadang, they are not even talking to each other. That's why when I was a public trustee in Penang, we have a lot of cases, and most of the cases where the beneficiaries can't agree. So the courts are generally relaxed when they want to appoint public trustee as the administrator, because we have no interest in that estate. So even if the beneficiaries don't agree for a public trustee to be appointed, the court can override, give that exemption and still appoint. But of course you don't want that to happen. You know, so that choice is yours. You need not need be beneficiaries, it can be corporations, or it can be your friends. And also for your minor children or your elderly parents, you need a guardian. And that could be provided for in the legacy planning. Okay, this is some of the instruments we talked about. Wills for non-Muslims and Muslim wills as well. And you have trust and your hiba. These are some of the instruments that should be considered when doing legacy planning. I mean, I don't want to re-emphasize that, you know, apart from what other things. That about some clarification on what will is. Says here, wills means a declaration intended to have legal effect of the intentions of a testator, that's important, with respect to his property or other matters which he desires to be carried into effect after his death. So you will see, you know, I mean, lawyers, you must give credit for the man who came up with this definition. This is found in the Wills Act. All the components there. And one of the beauty of a will is, you do a will today, you declare this is my last will, and you can change again tomorrow. And say, this is my last will, I revoke all the older wills. Because life is dynamic. If you make a will today, and then you still survive in 10 years' time, things have changed. The son who was never going to school, or he's a dropper from a Chinese school, is now a multimillionaire doing construction. Or has found something, new idea, and has created a big IT company. Whereas your daughter, who you thought, you know, was going to be well, she's now divorced and drug addict and all that, and you have to change. This is another act, I think these lawyers will know, Probate and Administration Act, which regulates administration of wills and administration of estates without wills. And they also talk about a privileged will. Privileged will is normally for soldiers who are in combat zone, you know. I don't want to talk more about that. Well, there is also a corresponding law in Sabah and Sarawak as well. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, as I said, I'm not here, you know, to bring you new ideas. All these are known to all of us. But it's a matter of us to create some awareness as to how I think we should advise our clients, because I see quite a number of advisors today, as well as advise ourselves to see what we should do. All right? A will, as I said, so easy. You don't pay any stamp duty for that. If you go to Rock Wills or Assolhin or even Azmi Associates, there are fixed fees. As I said, Bank Raya charges only 300 ringgit for a standard will. So easy. You decide what you want to do. The only problem is it must be allowed in law. That's important. All right? Therefore, it's always nice not to save a bit of money and go and see a lawyer to do it. If the lawyer didn't do a job, you can sue him. The estate can sue the lawyer. Azmi Associate, we are insured for 10 million. So if something I say is wrong, you can sue Amal Lutfi, because I am not a partner there, I'm a consultant, and then the firm has taken up interest for that. Why I say that is, you have to advise your client to seek out firms and companies and advisors who will take responsibility for what they do. When one Dato saw me, he said, Tuan Haji, you're going to do all the hibah and all that. If anything happens, it's not true, I've told my children to sue you. Not only that, I will curse you when I'm up. Sometimes you're not sure, whether what you're doing is right or not. You just say, Alhamdulillah, we just, fine. But that is a comfort that you have to give to the client. So what I'm saying is, don't go one-man show. Get your clients to go to an agency or an organization, because we are not dealing with ordinary people on the road. We are not looking at the 300 ringgit wasiat that is promoted by Bank Rakyat. We are looking at people. When I asked Dr. Aziz, who should be our target group? He said, Tuan Haji, minimum 10 million. Then I said, then I'm out. Not necessarily 10 million. I think anyone, 5 million above, I think should be looking at what we are talking about today. And that's not big amount, And we find that there are more and more millionaires. As I said, everyone in Bangsa is a millionaire if they own a house there. Wills, as I said here, is just a bit of a reminder for all of us. It may be signed during the lifetime of the testator, attested with two witnesses present at the same time. This is one of the lawyer's point. When people come and see us, we said, hey, where were the witnesses on that day? He said, one fellow signed, the other fellow just went out for the toilet and came back. That will is not valid. Because the law says they must be present at the same time. And this is the only document, ladies and gentlemen, a will, that talks after your death. As I said, when I come from Penang with a large Chinese Tauke environment, it is a ceremony, when Tauke passes away, the lawyer will come and read out the will before the coffin is taken to the burial grounds. Because now it doesn't happen that, it doesn't happen that way. Yeah, okay. Next. Malaysia, they have come up with some enactments. And Selangor, they are, I think, one of the leading states, still having problems. Sultan has given Pakatan the 3rd of September to decide what to do. They are far ahead in coming to the Muslim administration of wills. So they have enactment in 1999. Negeri Sembilan has one. And the other state is Perak. Melaka, okay. But whether there is enactment in that state or not, the Sharia principles is still applicable. And as lawyers, even though the Sharia says a wasiat can even be by way of oral mouth, wasiat. When a man dies, he utters something on his deathbed, wasiat. But we always say that it is always nice to have it written down, similar to the civil will. Kadang-kadang what the man said on his deathbed, people kata, saya tak dengar. Only one fellow heard, Because the fellow who didn't hear was the one who didn't get anything. So to avoid that, written will. Next. Wasiat, this is just a Muslim will, since most of you are here. I think from the word wasa, you will find that is what is conveyed. Because the concept of will is that you don't convey, you only convey, or it takes effect after death. But the wasiat, the word wasiat, it imposes a concept of conveyance. But technically, of course, it only gets transferred after your death. Similar provisions are set up as civil will, non-Muslim will. The will can be changed at any time. for no consideration. There's no need for you to give a reason as to why you want to change it. As Muslim lawyers, we take some comfort at what did Prophet Muhammad say. The sayings of Prophet Muhammad comes in big, big volumes, peace be upon him. And my Ustad was telling me that he has said everything to be said, My Ustad even prevented me. He said, Tuan Haji, don't go for any more ceramah. The fellows will be talking about nonsense and divination, because it's all there in the Quran and in the Hadith. It's so complete. You will see here, he said that it always comes in a double negative, Quran, Hadith, all comes, the verses come in double negative. He said, it is not permissible for any Muslim who has something to will to stay for 2 nights without having his last will written and kept ready with him. This is Hadith Sahih, a true Hadith recorded by Abdullah bin Umar. Therefore, you will see making a will is highly recommended. So if you are a non-Muslim trying to sell wills to Islam, to Muslims, you can have this Hadith. It is, as I said, it is Sahih, Hadith Sahih. All right, next. But how much a Muslim can will, there are some restrictions. This for only will. Trust, there's no restrictions. But for wills, there's a restriction, because a Muslim can only will away or give away his property to non-beneficiaries. Who are his beneficiaries? Parents, wife and children. To others, his adopted son. Up to the 1/3 rule. You can do that. You can say, okay, I want to give to everything to in this manner. I don't want to follow the Sijil Fraid. But the beneficiaries will have to agree. After the death, of course, during that time, if I call my children and say, okay, I have 3 sons and one daughter. Hey, boys, if anything happens to me, all of you should get equal shares. Sure, Masuju, yeah, Suju. But if you're not around, there's nothing to stop the brother to say to the sister, hey, you want to follow Bapa or you want to follow Quran? Is a difficult answer to be given by my daughter. So those who disagree with that arrangement will get what they are entitled to on the Sijil Fraid, and those who agree will then follow the will. I was talking to Dr. Aziz, how do we solve this? He said, Tuan Haji, it's better if we take a video of what you're going to say now. So after death, we play the video again to the children. Hey, this is what happened. Can you sign now or not? Do it immediately after, not a few days later, because the semangat dah habis dah. All right? Okay. This is one secret that I'm giving out of Dr. Aziz. Next. A trust is something that you should consider for your clients. These are some of the components. You have the person making the will, we call this settlor, the trust. Then you have the assets. You will have a trustee. There's a trust deed for that, and there will be beneficiaries. All right. Sometimes certain trusts, if it's not clear, will fail. And there is a Trustee Act, which covers areas not covered in the trust deed. And it is also goes additional powers. Assuming there's no provision in the trust deed to appoint a new trustee, or the trustee refuses to act because so many problems, then the law allows the beneficiaries to go to the High Court and appoint a trustee. trust in, of course, in Islam is known as al-amanah. And this is a verse from Quran, Al-Nisa. This is the same chapter in the Quran which talks about the Fried principles. And the Quran, of course, condemns people who commit breach of trust. You know, when someone is charged, especially Muslim charge, CBT, I feel sorry for him. Because he has not only offended the man law, he has also offended. He's here. Allah does command you to render back your trust to those to whom they are due. For Allah is He who hears and sees all things. So He cannot run away, you know, from the will of God. Next. Okay, as I said here, you know, those who betray not the trust of Allah, nor misappropriate knowingly things that He entrusted to you. This is another verse from the Quran. Okay. So who is executor and trustee, ladies and gentlemen? This is one of the success stories that we have in managing your affairs after you're passed on, is to determine the executor and trustee. Because we have cases, when I was in public trustee, where some of the corporate trustees had kept the file for so long because they earn fees either monthly or yearly. Sayang tu. That's not the intention for the executor. The duty of executor and a trustee is to execute the will or the trust in a speedily manner to the benefit of the beneficiaries and adhere to the wish list. I think this wish list is becoming a very fashionable word now. Wish list of the person who died. You will see here, his function is 3: manage, protect, and distribute, and close. Yeah. Thanks. You will see some plus and minus. I was asking Giffin who prepared the way, what is this plus and minus? Why I don't want a cross here? You know, he said, no, Tuan Haji, it's not a cross, it's a plus and minus. If you have will, there are pluses there. Some of the lawyers will know, if you don't have a will, you go and apply for a LA to the High Court, berapa susah ni. If you have beneficiary who refuse to sign, there are processes that you have to adopt. Whereas in a will situation, you don't require any consent, you show the will to the High Court, executor is named there, LA is given. There's a concept of administration bond to the value of the asset. Surety ni, penjamin. Who want to become a penjamin to an estate? Society. Or you have to apply for exemption. Difficult. That's why, you know, there's no will, there's a lot of minus. If there's a will, there's a lot of plus for both Muslims and non-Muslims. This is, I just want to talk about some things in the Act. I think these are given staff. What is an administration? Is a reference to the deceased person. LA is issued by the High Court. It can be general or limited, or the will annexed or otherwise. Why I say will annexed? If, assuming the executor has passed away or he refuses to act, then it becomes a will annexed. And authorize the person to administer the deceased estate in accordance with the law. Okay, that is a straightforward definition from the Probate Administration Act. Personal representative is also defined. It could be the executor, original, or by representation, or substituted. He administers the estate of deceased person. As we all know, the first thing is to pay the deceased debts, and then you distribute accordingly. Let me just move to Hibah. As I said, if you go to PNB, I will recommend you go to the ASNB website. Very good write-up about this Hibah. All right. Of course, I was told PNB now starting making some money from this because you have to pay some annual fees and all that. Hiba is an Arabic term derived from habuba, which literally means passing. That's why I was using the word passing on rather than passed away, It's passing. You're passing on to your beneficiaries. It's a contract where someone gives his wealth to others without expectation of any consideration or exchange. Because in the normal contracts, you need to offer an acceptance and there's a consideration. Whereas in trust, hiba tadatu. Next. Okay, at the moment, this is just for Muslims, there is no specific legislation on hiba. Dr. Aziz is one of the proponents of a legislation to be made in Malaysia. Okay, we support that. But Hukum Syarah is quite clear on what forms hiba. And some of the trust companies have come up with some ingenuity ideas, when some ideas that, when I was introduced, I was a bit surprised. Call it substituted hiba or living trust. It's quite interesting. The beauty about the hiba is that it will not form part of the donor's estate. When somebody passed away, you cannot say it's part of Sijil Fra'id. No, it is out of that. So that is the advantage that we face. The question that Muslims normally have is, hey, can I change Fra'id? The answer from me, yes, you can, provided you do it during your lifetime, not after your death. That means you do something to estate that will not part form of your estate which is subject to Sijil Fra'id. If you do a will, it will be subject to Sijil Fra'id. That's why you require the consent of the beneficiaries after the death, and that's why Dr. Aziz's theory of doing a video, on the day of death. Okay. But if it is a proper hiba, I use the word proper because hiba can be challenged. If it's properly done, it will be excluded from the donor's estate. Elements of hiba, come here. I think this is some of the things. I think this is donor-donee subject matter declaration. Declaration is important. Okay. If we are talking of land, one of the things that we have to do is they have to transfer the land. We are doing one work for one millionaire, and then we say, Dato', you have to transfer the land. He said, Tuan Haji, let me think about it again. There are certain declarations in hiba that can be revoked. Some you cannot. I don't know why, for some reason, if you give something away to your wife, as way of a hiba, you can't take it back. The reason is, she's not your blood relative. But to your own children, you can give today and take it back tomorrow. They call it revocable. There must be some reason why it's done that way, but it must be properly done, of course. Okay. Other instruments for Muslims? Okay. There is a question of wakaf, zakat, nomination, as well as harta pencarian. Harta pencarian is something unique to Malaysia only. You don't have this concept in other parts of the Muslim world. This is very similar to the English provision, where if a husband and wife work together and create wealth after marriage, the wife is entitled to close to 50% of the wealth created. There is one Tanstri's case now in the federal court. It says which law is applicable, either Malaysia or UK. If you follow the UK law, you get the lady will get 50% of the Tanstri's wealth. If you come to Malaysia, I'm sorry, unfortunately, we follow the old system. You get what he gives you. Right. But under Islam, in Malaysia, you have this harta sepencarian, which is applicable both when you are alive and also when you are dead. Nomination is an area, which is still not very clear. There are some fatwa given. If a person, if I nominate, say my wife will get all my EPF monies, the fatwa says she receives it as a trustee. But we have not found any cases yet, where the beneficiary challenge that. But there are problems with that. Next. Okay, just want to give you a bit of a case study. There are 2 here and there is 3 in your paper. The type of cases we are seeing now. Not every time you see a client who is suffering from cancer, please, it doesn't happen always. In this particular case, you will have a Muhammad Chan, a convert Muslim. Why we pick on this case is, this is very unique. Not many people are aware, When a person converts Islam, Islam completely disregards his other beneficiaries. So, he has to be aware that he has to make provisions if he wants to benefit his children, his spouse, who are not converted. This is important, okay. You see here Muhammad Chan, a convert Muslim, and a successful businessman. His wife passed away. He is going terms with his elderly mother since the rest of the family members disagreed with his conversion. He was diagnosed with cancer at the age of 50 and was taken care of by an adopted son since he was ill. How can Muhammad Chan benefit the mother and the adopted son and leave his legacy to them and exclude the rest of his family members? Is a question for lawyers and planners. If he does nothing, his elderly mother will be left home and dry, and his adopted son will not get anything. So, a legacy plan for him is critical when he is sitting there with cancer in his body. We'll look at another file which we have. One is Mr. and Mrs. R have 3 sons and 1 daughter. The youngest daughter is born disabled. Sometimes, it happens. You look around, big families, there's always one spot which is soft. You will see here Mr. R wished to give all his assets to their disabled daughter and create a trust via will or a wasiat. Mrs. R agreed with Mr. R's arrangement. So the lady, his wife, agreed. Mr. R died in an accident. The other children, of course, disagreed with the distribution and want to claim the entitlements, including the wife, who had already agreed. So you will find it becomes difficult. They are going to challenge the will, that the will was created when he was not of sound mind, or you can throw a lot of things. As a lawyer, I can have 20 reasons why the will should not be accepted, and the lawyer will have 25 reasons why the will should be allowed. So you will find this could be a challenge, and if the will has been properly done, then they cannot challenge, except for the other. You remember the legislation which I talked to you, where if the lady, the wife, is entitled to some maintenance under that, plus if the other children are also disabled or become disabled, then they are entitled to some maintenance from that particular asset. Where to start your legacy planning? Before that, can I take you to this, the blue? Blue is our Azmi Associates corporate color. That's why we come blue here. Go to the next, a few pages there. There will be a flow chart of legacy planning process. All right, is there? So where do you start your legacy planning? Let me just get this. The options available are, of course, you will go to lawyers, trustee companies, financial institutions, financial advisors. If you find these financial advisors or banks and all that, they are not selling legacy planning, they are selling some products. They have a wasiat. They have a wasiat for Melayu, wasiat for non-Malays, for non-Muslims. Or they sell some insurance products. Or they have a standard trust instruments. But nobody does legacy planning, ladies and gentlemen. This is the awareness that we want to create from you. What we are recommending to clients is that if you want to go do legacy planning, you have to go to a place, not necessarily Azmi Associates, because we have Dr. Aziz with him and I got a few lawyers dedicated to this, but any other organization which can provide a full range of services, not just these planners who just sell one product. We are not looking at product sellers or agents of selling products. You should have that. That's why if you look at the chart which is given in our paper, these 4 charts, okay, you see here, you will say meeting with the client to discuss on their wishes and goals in regarding to the estate plan, advise and identify clients' needs, assets available and beneficiaries. And then we are looking at showing there's some drafts, creating necessary agreements, and the list goes on. We reckon that in order to have an effective document with the agreement of the key players, we are looking between 3 to 6 months. That's how we are looking at it. Okay, this is, if you go to the next page from that, you will have, do you want your family members to be left unprepared and unprotected? There's one here. Sample case study 1, Muslim. Next. Okay. This is a live case that one of our consultants are managing, and we will be assisting, providing some assistance if required. You will see here there's a Dato U, 65 years, Dato K, Datin K, 60, who owns Sun Group of companies. This is in my case study 1, Muslim. Dato U manages the construction business, and Datin K manages leisure business, hotels and all that. This always happens, Some business assets are under personal names, and some personal assets are under company names. This is work for lawyers. If you get a file like this, a lot of fees, because you transfer here and there, and on the government also benefit. Stamp duty 3% for property more than 500,000. Fortunately, Tuan Haji reduced the stamp duty. Last time was 4%. Now we are paying only 3%. Some shares have been given to key personnel of company. When you take away shares from your management staff, you should do a case study of SP Setia and also E&O, because I come from Penang. Dr. Tam got back his shares and his share price has shot up. SP Setia, he sold the shares, share price are down by 1 ringgit. So you will see here, Dr. K, Dr. U, because he want to keep, so he has given some shares. So if he dies, what will happen is some third parties have shares to his family company. 3 daughters working in the company and 1 son still studying in UK. This way it becomes. Dato U's sister and Dato K's brother are also working in the company. You look at YTL, look at Gamuda and all that. A lot of cases similar to this. Husbands of 2 daughters are also working in the company. This makes, very interesting. Apart from business assets, the family has few bungalows, condos, and apartments overseas. It's become very fashionable now. You should have an apartment in London or in Australia for Malaysians, in spite of a lot of restrictions there. If you die in London owning an estate under your name, 40% goes to the state, to the English government. Malaysia, not many people know, Dr. Mahathir abolished estate duty. No estate duty. Credit should get to him, because a lot of my friends in the estate duty office lost their office. They lost their jobs. No more estate duty. That's why all the estate duty planning and all that went out of the window. So Dato U and Dato K, they want to plan for distribution and preservation of wealth with provisions for their grandchildren. They also want to establish a family waqf, because this is a Muslim family. So you will see that Dato U and Dato K, when they are already 65 and 60, the Prophet Muhammad said, for mankind, or current mankind, the death is between 60 to 70. Any fellow who lives beyond that is a bonus. So you will see here, this man is 65 and 60, he knows he has to plan. And you will see what will be the instruments that we have to look after. You will have trust, you will have waqf, you will have hiba, you will have companies trust, property held in personal names. Earlier. So if I put this endless possibilities, this is a chart that you have. Next. Okay. If you go to the next page, please. We are talking of a sample case study 2. This is a Mohd group companies owned by the L family. The Tan Sri is already 85 years old, but still active. And Puan Sri, this is an olden Ame, Amo is a housewife. They have 3 sons and 1 daughter, with 2 sons 60 and 68 and daughters 55, all in the business. It happens that the youngest son, who is the most capable, is not involved in the business, but is doing his own business and doing very well. The daughter is a CFO, and the 2 sons, unfortunately, have no formal education, and they listen to whatever the daughters say, their sisters say. 10 generations already in the business. They are in the construction and housing development, and they also control 2 KLSC companies by way of family-owned holding companies. So Tan Sri, I think, is worried. His age is catching up. He has some insurance and wills and all that, but he wants to relook at it. If he comes and see you, what will you do? This is something that we have to look at. Not many of us may be in that Tan Sri's position. But there are people out there that we should be looking out to help them. And one of the key objectives of today's session is to bring that awareness, and we have to seek out. Lawyers, we cannot advertise, I cannot say Azmi Associates, we have Haji Rasheed and Dr. Aziz come. We cannot do that. So this, if you look at the chart, this is what it applies. My last case study. Okay. Here is more, the other 2 are, multi-billionaires, and here is more to us. I think most of you in this room, I think may fit in here. Mr. Rahman, a successful engineer and a partner. It applies to both the Muslims and non-Muslims. And a partner in a small engineering firm. Mrs. Rahman is a principal of a secondary school. With her tuition and all that, earns quite a bit of money. They have a son 22 and studying in London. 2 daughters who are still young, 12 and 8. Youngest daughter is disabled and in special school. Okay. Family has deposited sufficient funds in London for the son to complete his education. I think I must give credit to the Chinese community. They pay so much emphasis. Each time we see them, I've seen them, they will always have a fund for their son or daughter being educated either in London or in Australia. When I was in Shell, a lot of the Chinese staff used to send their children to Australia. And they will have special funds for them. So you will see Mr. Raymond has an elderly mother living with her younger brother. Of course, you don't allow the mother to stay with you as a woman. Mr. Raymond has an elderly father staying with them. That's expected. The annual income as an engineer and a teacher is about 320,000 per year. About 25,000 a month, I think. They own a bungalow, 2 shop houses, and an apartment in London. Mr. Raymond plays in the stock market, not uncommon. Our stock market, I think for the last week, went up to 7 billion shares. 3 billion is speculative, playing shares worth below 10 cents. He had 2 million. They bought medical insurance for their family and the elderly parents, and they would ensure adequate provision for the disabled daughter, the other 2 sons, and elderly parents, and are seeking a legacy plan. So you will see all the components are there. And if you look at ourselves here in the room, I think I would say that 50% of us may fall into this category. So we need a legacy planning. There's no two way about it. And Labuan is here to help if your assets are big enough. This is a chart here, next one. Okay, what we are looking at, ladies and gentlemen, is if someone were to come to you or were to come to us, the first step that I found is that we forget that they require what we call advisory services. You have to make up a family plan. I think Dr. Azmi will be talking about it afterwards. I think that should take up a substantial part of the engagement between consultants and the clients. Then you will find that is there any other corporate services they require, including Islamic finance services. Then you have the drafting of documentation, executor shape, and then if it passes away, this application of probate. Recap, as I say, ladies and gentlemen, these are the main instruments of legacy planning. I think it is incumbent on us as advisors to update ourselves. The latest thing that we should know about these matters. As I said, since we are not able to give in detail today, for those people who are interested to know about legacy planning in more detail, preferably those who are interested to do the legacy planning, Azmi Associates is having some sort of an open house on 10th and 17th of September from 10 to 1 p.m. where I, my team, and Dr. Aziz will be around in Azmi Associates, 13th floor, Menara Kekseng, Jalan Bukit Bintang. This is not for other advisors' place. It's more for people whom you want to help. Either you can bring your own client or you can come on your own. We can go into details as to what you can help or what we can do to help them. Make a note, is 10th of September and 17th of September, 10 to 1 p.m. at 13th floor, Menara Kekseng, Jalan Bukit Bintang, which is opposite Pavilion. We have put a registration desk at the outside. You can register what date you want if you're interested. We are not forcing you to come. No obligations. Coffee and tea will be served. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope I've given you something, and wish you all the best. May all of us live long enough to ensure that we complete the legacy planning during our lifetime. Thank you very much.